Hello, motherfuckers.
No. No.
What's the issue? What's on? What's the problem? Oh, good. We've already turned her feral.
Stop it. These
No. No.
demons. The voices.
The voices! Actually, no,
checking it.
the voices!
I can hear them in the walls below that. Alright. Oh, yeah, I didn't connect the stream avatars because I'm a fucking big brain. Hold on. My brain's massive. Let's see here. Hello, all of you, and welcome in. Get back on live 15 minutes to an hour. Yeah. Make sure that wasn't done to an error. Okay. Bleeder Brown has been temporarily taken down, out of my control, so I gotta boop on that.
Oh, shit.
Moderate is maintenance. I can't fucking spell maintenance.
It's all maintenance.
Yeah, that's really helpful.
Yeah, I got you. No
I
worries.
got it.
That's why they keep androids maintenance hatches near their crotch area so they can have maintenance.
Oh my fucking god.
Maintenance. That's fucking wild.
Gifts off. Also, fuck you. Gifts aren't off. I am still able to see them like I'm fucking schizophrenic. It's just no one else can. Like I'm schizophrenic.
It's a Hi, Matt. Nice 75K badge. I've never actually seen that before.
I will say whatever the fuck I please. How dare you? So yeah. Last time he sent me a British man with big headphones, a big ass wig, and sunglasses, and with a patriotic like flag around his neck, with a family with an X over them saying "not family friendly." With the kids, the father, the mother are all crying.
Yeah, that sounds like Matt.
Yeah. Anyway, when we last left off. We had just made it down to the kind of bowels of the ship, of Alice's old ship, and we've discovered that what used to be the source of power for the engines that thank you, the engines that went through the void has been corrupted by this disgusting little flower here. That and Alice's not familiar, sorry, deity, patron, entity.
Patron.
Sugar Daddy.
Yeah.
No, that's you.
I'll accept it.
All right. Yeah, it does not like the flower, and it appears that most void creatures do not like that flower. It is a carnivorous thing that eats worlds, so they are not a fan. Thank you for repeatedly playing the Half-Life scream sound effect for a scientist. I appreciate that. Yeah, it just keeps Yeah. It advised asking Spark for help, given that she is probably the most powerful thing we can reasonably access, and that has some kind of connection to the void. And to be fair, the last time the Axolotl tried to help, it didn't go exactly as planned. Remember what happened. Don't think about how many dollars I have subsidized. I don't know what that means. With to get 75k bit badge challenge hard. I don't. But yeah. So now we are all down after berating Alice and telling Alice that she's not gonna leave us behind. We have followed her down with her and are now observing this gangly mass of yeah, exactly, of Half-Life 2 death. Yeah.
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 Well,
Go ahead.
only thing I can think of to take care of this thing is to ask Spark for some help. Last time I encountered her, it was uh, I think she was trying to end me. Either that or she like
Oh.
really wanted to give me a hug. I'm not sure. I want to find out which one, but I don't think we have any other options.
Regrettably, I am going to agree with option one on that one.
You if by the end of this you manage to sleep with Soul's mom, I'm giving you a high five.
I'm going to end you.
I will also give you a high five.
Can both of you stop?
No.
Why? Why are y'all like this?
We're wizards.
Because we're the crew you chose.
Yeah,
Weirdly enough, I'm not even the one who said that.
we're wizards. We
Right.
put a little dirt on our pillow for the dirt man.
I am going to.
Let's
Kill
cast Eldritch Blast against Frost.
Sit down. Go ahead. Sorry, Fire Fist.
Can we actually
Let's
throw
cast
out?
Eldritch Blast against the Royal.
Can we just throw Orion in the flower?
I mean, you could. I don't recommend it. I think I'm biased given I'm the person who plays her, but that is
Bargain
certainly
redeem is
one of the
off, by the
options
way.
of all time. Go ahead, Reed. Sorry.
Your bargain redeem is off, apparently.
Probably.
She's a professional, Vath.
Well, yeah, I don't think I normally have it turned on. Well, I haven't for a while because I think it's been fuckery. Where the hell did I even have it?
I ate it.
Yeah, that happened. Oh, it's in fucking sorry. It's in Twitch itself. So I can go enable that. That's no problem. In the meantime, continue. Shut up.
Oh,
Not you.
I mean, the
Sorry.
best that we can do if we are gonna summon Spark is that we can basically help keep her off you. Maybe Solstice can try talking to her and see if we can actually get help.
Yeah, Alice, I'm not letting you talk to her alone this time.
Well,
No.
here's the funny thing. I can't bring you guys into the void with me, so whether you like it or not, I'm gonna have to go by myself. I can.
You can't
I-
talk to her from out here.
No, I cannot. I do have a way of uh like I have an emergency return basically. So worst case I'll be coming back empty-handed. Hopefully I don't. But I might need help once I get back. I have no idea how I'm bringing Spark back with me.
Absolutely,
Wait,
we'll be ready to whatever you need.
Wait, sorry, you're doing what?
What's
Oh,
up?
yeah, she'll probably be coming back with us.
What do you mean you're bringing Spark here?
How do you think she's gonna help? She has to get out of the void in order to help with this.
Right.
So I have to go in, find her, somehow make her agree to come back without killing me, and then we let her do her thing.
Um,
Luna
Whoa.
can't enjoy your fucking pancake.
I actually I would like to take a potion out of my inventory
Sure.
to give to Alice. I'm gonna give you a lasso in a bottle, a light lasso, one of my main spells.
Oh shit! Thank you.
If she's being very uncooperative, you'll have to put some of your own magic into this to sustain it. But aside from taking toxicity, it should just be ready to fire.
So don't think of you. Last time you took a potion.
Ooh,
I don't think she'll forget anytime soon what happens when she takes a potion.
Yeah, I don't think many people can forget the slug puppy.
out of
fuck out of
everything that
this.
happened, that was the best part of it. That was the only good part of it. Everything else was horrible.
Let's see.
Why can't you
That
take us
says
with
a
you?
bargain, a deal. Give us 1D's nuts token in exchange for such a hefty price. Gain 10 insight, regain 10 years of your life, or uh lose your corruption that you currently have built up and gain 5 years of each back.
That's a little one-sided.
Yeah.
That's very overpowered.
I'd be willing to give 10 years or 10 insight back. That I feel like that's fair. That's about the cost of a spell. A big boy.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Which is what a decent nuts token would go for.
Yeah.
I don't have near enough to warrant it, and I will become a baby if I do that.
Yeah.
So
Same.
and that is a fantastically generous offer. It's just not something that is going to be viable for me right now.
Mhm.
I fucking
No,
my
Ryan.
Days Nuts token was vibrating in my inventory when you offered it.
I have no tokens. I spent them on pancakes.
Ryan, if you would like to your insight back, I will gift you a D's nuts token, just like how I will be gifting you my nuts.
Because of that statement, I decline. Thank you.
Damn it! I was hoping to get a token from that too, and just give the token to you.
Oh, I see. I see. You're hoping to exploit the game.
Disqualified. You had to say my nuts. It has to be D's nuts.
Whatever. Whatever.
So Alice, why can't you take us with you?
I'm still learning how the magic to travel to into and from the void works. I figured out how to bring myself, but I don't know how to do it with other people.
So it's just
The only way I can currently come back, and then she pulls her cloak to the side and lifts up the sleeve of her shirt, and you see like a bunch of like, scars and runes engraved in her arm. This is the only way that I know to get back. These are essentially coordinates for this world. You guys don't have that. I wouldn't be able to bring you back with me.
And also,
Hmm.
I can't travel to the void.
well, you can't. But your clothes follow you, right?
Bruh.
Yes.
There's a reason I'm asking. Reef walks over. You hear a slurping sound, and you now have a Reef hat.
What? Huh?
What?
Reef just became your hat.
I mean, you're still a different being. Like I don't
mean, okay, as a
that's gonna
DM, I
work.
will let that work if that's something you want to do, but that will still be up to Alice's discretion on that one.
Of course.
Uh,
The real question is this something you want to tackle?
yeah,
You know
out
this
of
game, you're gonna try everything. Okay, yeah, I was gonna say out of character is this the narrative thing?
Yeah, out of character. Like if she tries to bring any of you into the void currently, she hasn't figured that magic out. You will get like you will turn into nothing. You
I don't
will
want to be
literally be
vaporized.
erased.
Say no more, fam.
No, no. Both of you. No.
He slurps back. Fine. But you come back alive.
I will do my best.
That wasn't a request.
You don't want me to
Okay.
bring you back alive.
No,
I-
no necromancy, please. Holy shit.
It'll be fine. I'll figure something out. Before I go though, she opens up a smaller rift and like puts her hand into it, trying to reach for something. I don't. Hold on. And then she puts her head into it, and she's like clearly searching for something, and she can't find it.
Also, you need new
Please roll a
shampoo.
d20 to see if you find the bagman instead.
No, no, computer. I want to say rift, not raft. You fucking.
Not
egg.
raft.
I think Alice opens a rift and it wants to autocorrect rift to raft. No.
Her head's pop that her head pops back out of the rift, and then she pulls out a box and tosses it to Tara.
Oh. Ah. Oh. Out of character. Just a moment. Yeah. Fire Fist. Get over here.
Fuck you all.
Got something for you.
Okay.
Alice makes a good point. The look he's giving me right now.
Uh oh.
What the shit?
Yeah. He is laughing already. Hey, why are you putting it on me? This is bullshit. This is bullshit.
Well, how did Thursday?
No, this isn't fair. This wasn't supposed to happen.
You take the hat off, you get 10 corruption.
No.
No.
That's fucking wild.
If you would you like for me to read out the messages after you've gotten a chance to read, or would you like to read them off on?
I'll let you do because I have to use push stop.
You should
Well, you
probably
go ahead.
explain to chat what the hell had just happened.
Okay. Yes. If someone would be so kind. Ritha got this from Ponyboy's shop from you, and apparently a queen wanted to leave a message in it for you as well. And Tara hands over a rainbow gift bag with a bunch of rainbow gift paper inside, and inside is a sparkly pink cowboy hat with the matching bandana. Which apparently Fire Fist has promptly put onto Tara's head.
This is a real life item, also,
Yes.
to be clear to chat.
Yes, this
This actually
Nox
exists.
actually ordered this. Yep, Nox started off started a conspiracy chat. Nox, you explain yourself.
I don't see why I have to explain myself.
Nox set this up, so it's been a fun time getting this planned out in the background and have a laugh. A good callbacks to the first episode we ever had together. And it jazzes me out. It's a prank, but it's a fun prank. Oh shit! It fell off my head. Fuck! Do I have to take corruption? Do I actually?
No.
Okay, thank you. I do want to wear the bandana though. I'm gonna wear the bandana.
Hell yeah.
Would you guys like me to read them out, or do you want me to just put it
Read.
aside?
You can read them out.
Okay. So, from the one who planned this all, hey Alpha Nerd, we may have yeet our last haul with this one, but sometimes you have to fuck around and find out. Happy birthday to a dear friend and looking forward to many more years of shenanigans, says Nox. Rage, hope the fire this hat burns with is as bright as the adoration I have for you. Raising a glass to you. How do you say that word again, Unknown?
Slancha.
Slancha. From Unknown, the prettiest girl in the barn. Happy birthday from Truz.
Rage just DM'd us saying, "I will see you all in hell."
Yay.
Pony Boy says, bro, I fucking love you, bro. I'm so glad I got to spend another year around the sun with you. Here's to hoping for some more until we get dizzy from spinning. Take a smoke break on me. Also, if you don't wear this for at least 1 minute, I will cry. With much love. Alice says, Rage, thanks for your friendship and for being an incredible person. I'm glad to be your friend, and here's to many more years of laughs and fun. I may have forfeit my life participating in this, but it was fucking worth it. Happy birthday. And Tara goes, yeah, I owe you for this. You can put it in my butt later. And lastly,
I'm sorry.
did you not read the card when I posted it?
I missed that one. I didn't. I looked at it. I didn't see the. Oh, okay.
Missed that one too.
Would it fit?
Uh,
I don't think it would fit.
oh.
Anyways.
If you wear, and then a note from a Grand Queen: if you wear this through your next Wizards game, you will be returned to either your familiar or your bond. How's that sound for a deal, Firefist?
If I find that fucking familiar, I'm gonna skin it alive.
Well, you'll never have a
That's
chance
kind
to
of about what I
return,
figured
do
for
you?
it. How do you feel about this, love?
As I said in the side chat, I'll see you all in hell.
Love you too. Love you too. Happy birthday.
And hold up one more second. Alice, can you toss me the other thing?
Oh yeah, I think you might like this one more. She opens up another rift and puts her head into it and puts her tongue out, and she grabs a smaller box and tosses it to Tara.
Here you go. I have pulled out the surprise motherfucker bag. I'm just getting laughter and what the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? I almost wanted to just put off push to talk. I want to hear this. Oh, sorry. Here, I'll So, what I have handed Firefist is an onyx ring with a charging stone. And Tara hands it over to Firefist and says, Alice found the onyx and its materials from the deep. Rith designed the ring. Soul saw to the creation of the band. I handled the engraving and jeweling, and Orion enchanted it with a friendly gift for dire times. And together, they kept their secrets waiting for the day.
Oh, the day.
Jesus fucking Christ.
We made this back for you to get this ring, bud. It looks so good on him. Holy shit.
Hell yeah, dude.
Hell yeah.
Perfect fucking fit.
I'm so jazzed.
You guys are fucking goofy, but thank you. That's extremely thoughtful.
Yeah.
This was a fucking group effort, hun. I'm glad that you like it. It was fucking worth it to get the laugh from you and see the smile on your face, love.
She got to see in real time the what the fuck expression on my face twice.
Yep.
Which, by the way,
the one time what's up?
I was saying, by the way, those are actual items in game, and they do have like that power wasn't a joke. The ring is actually enchanted with something that is a friendly gift for dire times from Orion, and that hat is actually enchanted with that deal.
Oh God.
It's not a joke.
I mean, it is a joke, but still.
It is a joke, but it's a real one. We're wizards.
Yeah, it's just how I wanted to go out fighting a queen just with a pink sparkly cowboy hat.
Hell yeah.
It'd be a true power move.
It would be.
It'd be very, yeah.
I'm just saying.
You know what? I might just do it. We'll keep that in our back pocket for when the time comes. So it's let me read. So the ring, I have no idea what it does. It's
That's correct.
just dire time.
Yes.
And the hat, I know that it's if I wear it against a large fight or a session, it sounds like of some sort, then I can either regain my familiar, which that's not a good idea.
Basically,
or
get
regain
a
a
new
bond.
one. Or get a new one. You can just get a new familiar if you want. Yeah, so you can either wear the hat for the entirety of this session or the entirety of next session, and if you do, you will regain either a bond or you will get a familiar, whether that be the one you had before or a new one. I'll have lenience for that.
I mean, Firefist, if you wear it for this session, it's technically a shorter time because
That's true.
because we're already a good bit into it. So if you just wear it now, get it
So
over with.
here's an odd question though. With me having already burned 2 bonds, if I regain a bond, what happens if I burn that bond again?
Yeah, I mean, you it's
Oh.
not gonna have a negative consequence. Negative consequence is making you wear the pink hat.
That's what I'm curious about. Is if it's some kind of trade off where it's like, yeah, you get the bond back, but you'll if I burn it, am I gonna wind up doing something from the book basically?
Yeah. So the thing is it's just gonna act like a normal bond. It's just gonna be a normal bond. You'll basically regain one of the 4 hit points we have.
But you don't lose. He doesn't.
Okay, so bonus bond.
If you burn it, you will regain. It's basically as if you did not burn. As if you did not reach 10 corruption in the first place.
But he keeps his 2 powers from it
Yes.
though, right?
Gotcha. But if I do wind up burning it, and that's the thing where I'm gonna need to pick another ability from the table.
Yes.
All right, fucking give me this stupid hat.
Yeah.
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 I'm gonna try to keep this on. I'm not gonna make a lot of promises because it's still hot as fucking here. We have 3 fans going.
Holy shit!
Take a picture.
Yeah, could
He
I
doesn't
please
like
get a
pictures.
picture of this?
I
Oh,
know.
that's right. Fuck.
Yeah,
get-
it's you
We
can
get a picture
imagine
for
it.
yourself.
Am I allowed to do that one, love? Just for you and I.
Do what?
Take a picture just for you and I.
He might kill us. He might actually kill us. We're
I
gonna
love that.
be
I'm
dead.
so glad you like a shotgun.
Orion cracks a gear bubble in her hand and pulls out a small artifact camera she's always had and slowly just takes a picture of Fire Fist with this hat.
Go ahead and keep that photo. I'm gonna put it on YouTube so I kill it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Wow, the camera didn't immediately get burst into flames. This is progress.
No, damn it, Reese. You had to say that. I was gonna wait till she put it back in her pocket, then light her pants on fire.
Oh, okay.
This would be like the perfect place to have like a party photo where it's like everyone gathered around being like happy and cheering with like Fire Fist in the center who has like a grumpy face and the fucking party hat on.
In front
cowboy hat.
Yes.
In front of the
Yes.
dimension-eating flower.
Yeah, in front
Yeah.
of the active
Yes.
fucking threat to everyone and their existence. Yes.
Oh, that's
How
us.
cute my dilator takes picture.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good way to. That's a good time to take a picture before you're gonna die. You know.
I have my picture. I'm very happy. Today is a very good day.
That picture
Hell
ever
yeah.
leaves your phone, I'm divorcing you.
Oh my god.
All right.
Wow.
Which means I'm saving it forever.
Just means you're
Oh,
saving
you-
it until that phone dies.
Tomorrow we're
It's my
gonna have them both wake up and rage. Like, oh no, I tried to get out of bed and I just slammed your phone 3 fucking times
Ah.
into the side of the nightstand and closed the door on it.
What a
Oh
Winky Pooh.
god, oh that's terrible. And it still boots up and he's like, he just throws it against the wall. He's like, oh, whoa, man. Oh,
It's like, God damn you, Samsung quality.
Oh
oh,
man.
wow. You know, I think we could still get it recovered. He's just like stamping on the phone. He's like, no, I think it's really
No, I
dead.
think it's really gone. Yeah.
I want you to know I'm gonna have to wear the stupid hat sideways because it won't fit over my headset.
That's even better, honestly. That's perfect.
We're gonna pretend I had to wear it sideways because someone forgot to cut the horns out for it, so I had
Or-
to just pierce with my
You know,
horn.
it's funny because Ponyboy did wear his hat always sideways and always insisted that that was how it was supposed to be worn.
That tracks for Funny Boy.
Yeah. He made you the most stylish hat known to man and known to wizard. He thought the queen's hat was a
Great.
little gaudy, you know.
Yeah, I'm gonna walk into the next royal affair and it's gonna be adorned by people that's like, where'd you get the hat? And it's like, hell.
Heck yeah. Well, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, fucker.
Yeah.
Love
Happy
you, Ray.
Thank
birthday.
you. Thank you guys. That is very thoughtful.
Yeah.
Out of character. I appreciate all of you. You're all shitlords, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Heck yeah.
I will be the stylish motherfucker with a very fancy cigar and this really pink, sparkly cowboy hat.
Fuck yeah.
Yes.
And a ring that you can punch a motherfucker with.
Oh, that definitely leaving an impression on someone's face.
Right?
Timestamp.
Timestamp.
Shotgun, the lizard being broken is later tonight when he makes me
Okay.
agree. Anyway,
It's Sunday. It's Sunday, not Tuesday.
What?
Every day's Tuesday, if you believe.
Yeah.
But
Lizard.
lizard,
Lizard.
lizard,
Lizard.
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 Lizard wizard, and I'm about to use my staff for nefarious thing.
Oh.
Lizard, wizard, the gizzard, king, gizzard, the wizard, lizard, king.
I am the Lizard King.
You see little Luna walk up to you, Alice, and she kind of like grabs one of your hands. Hey, stay safe. I know you've been there before, but she's crazy. From what I've heard from from what I've read from the documents I probably should have spoken about earlier, she's known to be a traitor of any land she's been a part of. So please.
Soul is looking at Luna with crazy eyes. What do you mean, documents? Never mind. Never mind.
Part of being someone who works with royal documents is that I'm able to keep a secret and that I don't speak about things unless they're relevant. And right now, it seems like this is kind of a do or die for a lot of us.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Well, they'll be fine. I've done worse, right?
She like
That's not a good thing.
she's like yeah. It's
mean,
okay.
I
You wrecked our
really-
spaceship.
What?
I really don't want to have to resort to my plan B, so please be successful.
And hey, if you take her back and she ends up being crazy, you know, we have the tiara, I guess.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll be able to bring her back, but you guys are on standby for when I do get back with her in case she tries anything.
Yeah.
Does the tiara work on whatever the fuck a scion is?
We don't know. No one's
We
tried.
never.
Hmm.
Marx
Wait a
is
minute.
interested, but they are not coming close. He's like, "You're gonna do great." From like, he's got like the thumbs up.
Who said that?
This guy back here, Marx.
The
Mark.
professor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alice kind of shakes her hands to try and shake off the nerves, and she raises her left hand, and her index finger starts to have some purple energy radiate out of it. And she starts to essentially write runes in the air. And as she finishes doing that, she opens up her hand, and the runes starts crawling up her arm, and she walks over past Tara to the, oh, sorry, didn't mean to
Goodbye.
knock you over.
Chair
She
immediately
uh,
flops.
She accidentally pushes Tara into the void. No.
So she just like walks around and extends her arm, and then a massive rift with the runes kind of melting into it opens. And then she turns around. Well, here goes nothing. I'll be back in a few seconds. The time passes much quicker for me in there than it does for you guys. So see you very soon. And
Okay.
she steps in and fades out of view, and the rift immediately closes.
I was going to suggest she tied a rope to her, but this wouldn't have worked if the rift closed behind her, huh?
It'll be fine.
No, nothing. Okay. Sorry, trying to lighten the mood a bit here.
It's okay, Soul. Brooding is part of the wizard skill set.
Yeah, I know.
Reef grows emo hair and sits in the corner.
What the fuck?
Okay. So, Alice, let me load up my little notebook here. Let's see. So the way that this is gonna work is that Alice is gonna be in there for a little while. For the meantime, I will ask you guys when we get back over to here, but be thinking about what you're gonna be doing for about an hour, because that's what it's gonna be for our local time. In game. For Alice, you arrive in a flash of light in a white void. This place you've been many times. You hear the soft roiling of the energies around you as they graze your fur, and you just see the blinding white light that makes your eyes kind of have to take a bit to adjust.
Ah, my fucking retinas!
Yeah.
I was really worried those got forgotten, Meef.
No.
He's wearing them.
All right,
Yes.
commit
Yes.
to the bit.
Now,
I will share those also to chat so they can see.
hell yeah. There we go. Now, if you would like to try calling out the spark, I will simply need you to roll me a d20. But before you do,
Okay. Yeah.
would you like to know the stakes of this roll?
Fuck it, we're doing it live.
What'd you get?
6.
Fantastic. So, for reference, that table was 17 under its spark. Everything goes according to plan. 18 or 19, you hit a meeting with the mother root. and should you fail with a 20, you will have the unique honor of meeting Pride.
Oh,
But anyway, don't worry about that, because like a bolt of lightning and a flash of flame, Spark appears in front of you. They're floating, and they're angry, with piercing eyes. Her voice in person sounds less smooth, more old, scratchy. A witch once burned at the stake. Traveling my domain is brave. Taunting me is a poor decision. What do you want?
okay. Like, genuinely, I don't know what I did to you. I'm sorry. I'm not here to taunt you. I'm not here to fight.
Fine. We'll talk.
We have a bit of a problem. Um, back in your homeworld, or what I assume is anyway. There is a void plant that is trying to eat at everything. You're the only person we know of that might be able to help. We're out of options. If you care at all about what you've left over there, if you care about your son or anyone else, please, we're out of options.
Upon asking her about the flower, Spark shows visible disgust with a touch of horror. This is very rare, as she's quite to have her be afraid of something means that it's got to be pretty fucking bad. Most void dwellers wish for your death. This one wishes for your life. When I plucked you from that carcass of a vessel, I had hoped you would prove an effective ward, at least a distraction. Though it seems my path with this thing is plotted all the same. Unfortunate, but I suppose that's how it is. A few options present themselves, and none of them are good. If you'd like my help, fine. We'll make a deal. There'll be no hidden strings and no secrets.
And what about the other options?
Well, it's come to my attention you have access to 2 items that may prove effective against this plant, should you wish to try it yourself. You can attempt to disenchant it and hope that it only has one source of magic, something I don't recommend. God forbid you remove whatever's keeping it contained now, and you cause it to grow rampantly. Or you could use the staff that you have, though again, I don't think that I would personally take something that is currently bound to where it grows and make it something that can move.
I DM'd you my secret plan B trust just so you can laugh.
Yep.
Yeah, neither of those sound like a good option. All right. If we have to make a deal, then so be it. What do you want?
4 conditions. 1. The Big Fins owes me a favor. If I'm fighting in his war, I'm getting paid. 2.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Who owes her a favor?
The Big Fins, the axolotl.
Thank you.
Yep. 2. Your party has come in possession of a potentially advantageous position. I'd like to offer my guidance to that little sprout of yours, Luna. I've seen many civilizations fall, and for what it's worth, I'd rather someone do it right. You're free to doubt me, of course. 3. You will not like what it is I have to do, and you won't go a bit, and you're gonna deal with it. Should you or your friends disobey me, I will consider you a lost cause and leave you to die. And 4, to sweeten the deal, because I feel like it's a bit one-sided. I have the coordinates to your homeworld. It's surprisingly not far, and I know a shortcut to make it easy.
Alice's eyes widen as all of the as she was putting the options on a scale to weigh them, like suddenly she's got something that she really, really desperately wants.
You can feel free to ask about those options as well if you would like.
Um, what is it that you're gonna do exactly? Do we have any time to prepare? It sounds like it's not going to be a particularly pleasant experience.
I'll need something designed to cleave those of a much higher class. You'll see. Don't worry. The only person potentially at risk is that one you don't like anyway.
That just leaves me with more questions and more worry. Great. Okay.
This is what was coming. Freaking Spark had the same idea I did.
That's why when you messaged me, I was like, "Oh, you're not wrong."
Fine, but you said no strings attached, no lies.
No
Um,
lies.
we
No lies.
are including this in the contract, and I am writing it.
Sure.
What kind of form does Spark have? Is it like humanoid?
It is humanoid. She is an older woman who is oddly fit for how, like, you can basically think of like she's like a wizard or a witch who's been able to live for a very, very, very long time, and she is very built. Um, she's like the grandmother who can kick your ass handily. She
Okay.
is glowing very bright and has piercing white eyes.
Okay.
Fuck you, Alex.
Oh my god.
You have somebody for that now.
Much like earlier when she was getting ready to open up the portal, Alice writes a rune into her hand, which is basically a symbol for a contract, and she extends it to Spark.
The moment your hands touch, you both appear back on the platform that you leapt from. Let me put you here back in the thing. And we're just gonna use use Brick over here as Spark. And what have you guys been up to in the meantime, as Alice has been gone for about an hour?
Uri's been investigating the tech on this ship, just taking a look around, asking the professor a few questions.
Brian's kind of been just like chilling with her back to one of the rails. Looking at the flowers.
Solstice. Hang on. There's a fucking. I lost the GIF. Soul has a tennis ball that he definitely always had. He's been bouncing it off of the wall and catching it.
Let me denote that tennis ball you've always had there. Ball against the wall. Ball against the wall. Ball against the wall. Helps me forget about
My depression.
Yeah. Tara, what you been up to?
She
You
is
over here, by the way.
currently
Oh.
mixing up potions while she waits because she knows not what else to do with her time and she is fidgety.
Luna has been like kind of like anxiously talking to Marks this whole time. And Firefist, what you been doing in the meantime with your fancy hat?
Standing, casually smoking.
You just take the long draw for a straight fucking hour.
No, he brought the big cigar for this one.
You brought the Rousey booth and have just tanked it in one.
He's actually just smoking one of the flower's tentacles just to see what happens.
Just put little
Oh,
spores
that
on
actually
there.
give me an idea.
That might be.
I would like to take a sample.
Tara.
I'm vibrating.
You
Are
might
you gonna
die.
try
wanna
and
take a-
take a sample
wanna-
or not?
I want to take a sample.
As
You
you,
might
yeah,
die.
how you gonna take a sample of this thing?
She's going to reach into her bag for a set of medical pincers that she's always had.
Mhm.
And is going to try to attempt to take a small scale of bark off of one of the tentacles to place into a closed vial, or to
Sure.
put into a vial close.
As you get close to the bubble that's around this plant, Spark, with a swift motion, slaps your hand extremely hard and knocks the instruments out of it.
Well, that understood.
Which is also when we notice that she's there.
Oh shit!
Ah,
Soul is somewhere between the variation of emotion is. He's not quite sure how to react to this.
Hello, Mrs. Soul's mom.
see. Spark is an older woman with glowing white hair and eyes. They're very well built. Her hand feels like, when you take her hand, it feels like coming into contact with a mountain. She wears black and white robes with strange patterns, circles, twists, turns, folds, and flaps. The cloak itself is nauseating to look at and seems to shift as your eyes move. Now, I will offer you guys an option. I have a special coin here, which was designed specifically for this mission, specifically for this purpose. It has two lovely sides. It has a lovely gem, and it has a, because it won't fucking flip, it has a lovely crown. Now, would you like to flip the coin, or would you like to get two very vague options and pick between them?
Are the vague options the size? Can we hear what the vague options are? Because I assume the size of the coin, they'll flip the coin.
It's basically going to be, you have a familiar looking crystal, and you have a very unfamiliar looking crown. This is,
I think
go ahead.
let me paper plane you real quick.
Sure.
Okay. Proceed as you were.
You can also relay that if you wish.
No, it's fine.
I will say that that's something that you as a character probably would have noticed. Or, well, I guess not you as a character, because this doesn't actually exist, but yeah, like it. You as a player, I guess, would notice. But yes, basically, you have the option, and I'll just kind of be forthright with you on this. You have the option of, basically, letting Fire Fist incur the cost of whatever this is, or letting royalty face the cost of whatever this is. There will be severe consequences for both.
Well, I would
Hey.
royalty.
How you feel about this, Firefist?
Wait, I'm actually hearing this out loud.
No.
Okay.
Basically, she's going to ask for something, and depending on what you answer, that is going to be what the what's going to be what's going to go down. I've written two scenarios. This is deciding between them.
Royalty.
Got 2 votes for royalty.
I guess royalty.
Sure. What you thinking, Firefist, Tara?
I mean, I don't know exactly what the cost is, so I'm fine rolling the dice either way. It's not like this will be the first time I've taken risk.
Sure. How about you, Tara?
Fuck it, we ball.
Cool. Spark faces Orion and holds out her hand. Your sword is mine. Let me grab that song that I had earlier that I definitely didn't just fuck off and not have a... Wait, I'm stupid. I want to add everything from this fucking list, so I can just add the list. Oh. What the fuck, Richard? Apologies for my bitching. There we go. And... There you go. There we go. So, yeah, Spark holds out her, yeah, I used it earlier. Spark holds out her hand and requests Orion's sword. Bear in mind, no one knows about this deal you've struck other than you and Spark. I'm sorry? This might be a good time to explain to the party what your deal was.
I think that's to Alice, by the way.
Vivi? She might have lost internet or power.
Oh, she might have lost power, yeah.
Fuck.
Well, about that.
It's okay.
Yeah, no. Give it a second.
Oh, her mic's exploded.
Oh,
Oh. Yep, take your time. Take
I'm
your
going to
time.
go get it. I'm gonna go get a
To
sip.
cast silence on the ghost.
Yeah, I'm gonna go grab a sippy and refresh for a minute.
Yeah, no worries. Take your time to get like a bio break and stuff. Spark just reached over to Alice and just seagull shut. Dear fled from mind.
Rebooting the bleed.
What?
Just rebooting the ghost.
Also, keep stop fucking jaking it. I can see that on my screen. It takes up half my fucking screen. I can see that.
Oh my god. Matt, just never change, please. Never change.
Okay, let's not go too.
No, he's a gem. I've never met him. I wish I did when I was down there.
We're gonna chill for a little bit while I get spammed and see this flashing repeatedly on the side of my screen.
Driving in my car right after a beer.
Driving in my car, drinking a beer.
Hey, that truck is shaped like a
Good
no,
deer.
that bumper shaped like a deer. Do I? How about you die? Go 100 miles an hour.
Fuck
Little
it.
did you know I filled the. He put the link in chat. Oh. No.
Hold on. Okay.
Oh, I think you want to play Age of Empires with him later.
There you go.
Yes.
Got thrashed on the right game. Oh, rip.
Ah, rip. An hour. Little do you know, I filled up on gas. I'm a kick. Your fountain making ass. Fuck with my Birkin truck. Outside out of luck. Truck. Use no hand. Fast. Size.
For anyone who doesn't get the reference, this is a song remix of Asgore's theme of him singing about driving an F-150 while drunk and hitting one of the deer characters.
You know, so my dad has a Ford F-250, the bigger version,
Mm-hmm.
and I use a Spotify DJ quite a lot.
Uh-huh.
And I was in his truck, and suddenly Asgore turned on the radio.
Oh,
Hey!
Hey!
Hey,
okay.
Welcome back, Alice.
He
welcome
lives.
back.
You okay?
Yeah, Mike just decided to stop working.
Mm.
Did you get, nice job when you get back working again.
Let's see. Let me grab we'll grab that one. Sounds like it will sound really cool. I don't actually know what this song is, so but we're gonna cut back into that one for whenever peeps are back and ready to roll. Remember that the deer character in question caused the entire plot to Deltarune, which is why it's spoilers if it's true. Ah. I don't know. I haven't watched Deltarune or watched or played Deltarune chapter 2.
I'm good on my end.
Alright.
I'm good.
Yep.
Fire Fist?
Good to go.
Fine. Alright. Let us resume.
Okay.
Yeah, so last thing we had was Spark has faced Orion and has extended her hand and said, "Your sword, it's mine now. I need it." What?
What?
I had to go ahead, Dara.
Oh no, I was like, was this hers originally, or
I don't know. I had to make a contract to get her to help. All she said is that we are in possession of something that she needs for this. That's about all I know.
Might be worth it to mention that she basically told us to not disobey or else.
Oh, right, yeah, that was one part of it. Um, we have to do as she asks. Otherwise, I don't know what's gonna happen, but it's not gonna be any good. And our problem won't be taken care of either. We're gonna have two significant problems to deal with instead of just one.
So Orion, having known that, or having seen what happens when Solstice, Fire Fist, and Wreath have attempted to pick up the sword. I think Wreath tried to pick up the sword. I know at the very least Solstice and I think Fire Fist tried to pick it up before.
I think I watched somebody else do it, and I've been sticking to telekinesis since.
She's gonna like semi-hesitantly, sort of confidently hand over the sword, like, clearly no one else can fucking hold this thing. It's just me. To which Spark is actually going to move it around just fine. You're going to see a strange white power begin to surge around Spark. Give me just a second so I can actually put this like how. And then we grab open minded. Let's fucking go. Upon having the sword in her hands, she inhales deeply. She grabs the hilt of the sword with one hand and grabs one of the 7 locks with the other. With a lot of tugging, pulling, and much difficulty, the first lock shatters off the sword. You see Orion kind
Whoa.
of shake, and they're starting to tremble a bit. Spark grabs the second lock. You witness
Do you
her
need me
wince.
to just
Huh?
talk? Do you need me to say anything to Jimmy before you do all that?
I don't know. I didn't know this could happen.
I'm talking to Spark, not Ryan.
Spark is. Oh, this will be fine. I'm sure it won't have too bad of consequences. Better than the balloon we have here. She pulls off the second lock, and you witness Orion wince. Not too dissimilar from when Alice or Solstice has hit her before. Lock by lock, Spark starts pulling these things off the sword. You see its black gnarled appearance start to fade, start to fold back in on itself. And it seems like with each lock, Orion's getting progressively more sick. By the 5th lock, Orion screams and hits the ground. Her body is cracking. Green light is erupting from it, and blue flames are erupting from the gaps. You can hear some kind of metal bending and chains crunching.
Ew, that's not good.
The 6th lock is gone, and finally, the 7th lock is in Spark's hand. As she begins pulling, go ahead, sorry.
Do you need to remove all 7 of those?
It has to be unsealed. It's the only way it'll work.
Ah,
Mom, you're gonna kill her.
Oh, she'll be fine. Don't be a baby.
Alice is gonna just walk over to Orion and pin her down just on the ground in case whatever the fuck is gonna happen when the final lock breaks.
Wait, you're pinning her down?
Hmm?
Sorry.
As Spark's pulling at the 7th lock, let's see. You see Orion's eyes flash like lights, and a faint crown flicker above Orion's head.
oh, that's not good.
Spark
I'm sorry.
scoffs.
Can we change the music, please?
Yeah,
I can barely hear you.
That was not. It hit the vibe when I was
What?
writing this initially, but that was the vibe of writing, not the vibe of having a go. There you go.
What happened with her eyes?
There you go. Turn that down a bit as well. There you go. Yeah, so when Spark grabbed the 7th lock and began pulling the 7th like ring around the sword that's keeping it sealed. Here, I'll pick something that's less let's go to let's just go back to the damn witch bolt. That'll work. It sounded cool in my head at the time to have those songs, but
No, I'm sorry. I even with it turned out, I can barely understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Can you mention something about her eyes, please?
Yes. Basically, as they began pulling at the 7th lock, Orion's eyes were flashing like lights, and a faint crown flickers above Orion's head. Basically, looked like the one that was on that coin. You see Spark kind of like looking off to the side and scoff as the final lock snaps in her hand. The sword, here we go. The sword's black gnarled metal is replaced by a shimmering silver with a bluish tint. And they begin whispering to the sword. It roars with a flame that seems to burn even her fingertips, and with a single placement of the sword when the flowers bubble, it cracks. With more effort, the bud is impaled with the wrath of a pious claw. Disappointed eyes rest upon this land. However, whatever has happened, the bud is no more. It's shriveling and dying. The roots are crumbling in on themselves. The petals are wilting. Spark is kneeling in a white crackling flame, and the sword is firmly entrenched within the casket that once contained a small.
So wants to see what?
Pardon?
The casket that
The
contained the
casket
what?
wants. Yeah.
The casket is basically the thing that the flower had grown upon. It was the power source for this ship. Is they basically had a piece of the plant that they were using to power it.
Oh.
That's how they got it to fly through the void.
Yeah, fucking morons.
Whispers calm, and silence fills the air. Orion is not doing so hot. She's not really able to speak clearly. You can kind of hear when she tries, it's just babbling. And a faint blue crown appears above her head, though it is flickering. And beside her,
Oh
go ahead.
no, finish what you were saying.
Beside her, a suited figure straightens their tie, and Orion is free.
Is that fucking Lucifer?
Why don't you ask?
Lucifer?
Present.
Oh shit. Oh fuck. Oh
This is
no.
interesting.
That
Dayton, you're
contract.
tiny.
1 sec. Let me go.
Baby man. Baby man.
Tara, please. Ah,
1 sec. I gotta go quickly read something.
You're good?
Did the contract break?
The contract did break. However, with neither party being the reason it broke, neither of them suffer the consequences.
Eh.
You
Okay.
had an opportunity to break it when you were in her head before as well. All it really took would be someone telling her things she wasn't supposed to know about herself, but that kind of hasn't happened yet because most people don't know anything about her.
Yep. Can keep a secret.
uh, uh, is she dead?
She'll be fine. Probably. I don't know what else is locked up in there.
I've seen a vision of her with that thing. He points at the crown. Basically destroying the world. So hopefully this will. Yeah. Hopefully they didn't just trade one world-ending thing for another. Mrs. Soul's mom, did we?
Uh, Spark kind of like rips this sword out of the casket and throws it back over kind of where Orion is. It should be fine. I don't foresee her causing a catastrophe like that, but I can't say for certain. What I do know is you have at least prevented one catastrophe from consuming this land.
Size. I need a pay raise. Jesus Christ.
You're getting paid?
You're getting
Aren't
paid
you?
too. Wizards are getting a shitload of gold. You fly an airship. You have any idea how much fucking fuel that thing must consume?
It makes snow fuel.
Oh yeah, it's true. You have any idea how much food
I
you
also
must consume?
don't we summon out of these? Don't we summon out of nothing?
I guess if
We
you
never talked
count
about doing grocery runs.
You're not getting paid. You really got to check your contract.
you gotta ask Saber where he gets that food, man, because we've been eating that for a while.
Tara, do you have my I never did a contract.
Wait, you're not? Like Orion babbling, kind of like that shocked her enough to make her come to her senses for a second. You're not under a contract? Why do you even do this,
Not that I
dude?
know of. I have a choice.
I mean,
Reef pokes her with a stick he's always had.
Orion kind of like falls over a little bit. Just what?
You good?
My head is killing me. The crown's new. I am beginning to
At
remember
least,
many things, so I could be better.
at least he's not. At least he's not in there anymore.
That's
Priorities,
probably.
right?
Uh,
She doesn't appear to have noticed that Lucifer is without the contract anymore, and you see her eyes narrow and dart up directly to his. Touch Nova, and I'll kill you. I don't know how to use this sword, but I will find out. You know I can. For reference, Nova, we have actually met before. She was the character in the Glass Palace who was the right hand of the queen who did not like Orion at all. She was very not enthused to make her acquaintance. We weren't sure why she hated Orion so bad, but she did.
fairness, that's a normal reaction to
Wait.
Orion.
Well, yeah, but if Nova hates Ryan, why does Ryan care about her so much?
It was in the contract. They used to be friends or something.
Oh, is that the girl that Orion saved?
Yeah, something like that, I guess.
Oh. Oh. Wait, does she? Oh.
Your little
Oh.
friend here had Lucifer kind of like is he just pipes up like your little friend here had made a deal to keep her friend safe. She tried to summon me, or rather she tried to summon something else, and accidentally called, I guess, the wrong number. I had been trapped in that brat's body for a very long time. I was hoping I'd get some information out, and thankfully I did. But no, I have no interest in your friend. To be honest, I'd rather be free of you and of your people. I don't want to know where it is you end up. And I don't want to be a part of whatever it is you get up to. I have other things to attend to and other duties that I've neglected for long enough.
Can you tell Ozzy we say hi?
It annoys me that you have such friendship with my servants. But sure.
Thank you.
And for what it's worth, I'll make sure that your patron gets back in touch with you after hell has returned to its rightful position.
Who does he say that to?
Firefist.
Firefist.
Ah.
That's fine. He'll reach out his own time if nothing else. He owes us.
One more time, sorry?
So that's fine. He'll reach out in his own time. He always does.
Understood. You're free to show it to him if you want.
Well, as Soul's like moving around, he actually like pushes his cloak back to the point where his pistol is visible in its holster. He's not intentionally showing it off. He's just moving and shuffles and it glints in the light from the
Charm.
ship. Huh? What? But what? Huh? What do you mean by that?
Oh, it's fine. If you want to use artifacts of my domain, I don't have any problem with it. You paid enough price as it is to get it.
Oh, right. Thank you. I appreciate it. I think.
But that'll be all. Like I said, I have things to attend to.
Yep.
God, I was tempted.
Tempted what?
Snake.
We're not turning Lucifer into a snake.
Into a stick?
We're-
To be fair, that would be biblically accurate if you did.
I mean,
Well, that's why it is. He's a snake, so I could
yeah,
turn
he
him
is
into
a
stick.
snake. I mean, that's one way to piss off the devil.
Just,
maybe
just,
not.
just look at him. Hey, like, hey, Lucifer, stick around.
oh. We just got in his good graces, kind of, maybe, potentially, possibly
We,
a
we,
little bit.
we very much didn't. He just doesn't want to have shit to do with us anymore.
Well, he's free now. That's something. Oh god,
He's
we're never gonna be allowed
free,
back in
but
there.
he's gonna
we-
find out that a lot of things have changed since he's been going.
Yeah, that's hell is gonna be a hell of a lot hotter now, as well as we've seen before. It's gonna go back up to what it was supposed to be. Yippee! The world is set right, kind of. Um,
Actually made something like not fuck up for once. Shit.
yeah, basically we
I'm
fixed
just kidding.
hell by releasing
We
the
fixed
devil.
hell.
He was missing for a while. By being part of Orion's little thing.
If re-unleashing the devil back on the world is our idea of not fucking up, I think we might need some therapy.
I
If we didn't
mean,
already,
it's the domain that he runs.
I mean, you are
That's
wizards.
that's his domain.
Oh my god.
we need more than just therapy. Reed. Come on now, we need full psychological evaluations. Anyways,
Yeah. Okay.
Wreath looks to Spark, so now what?
Well, well. Ah, fuck. Sorry. Spark is choking on a hairball.
I mean, she did give birth to a cat.
Oh my god.
eh,
I can't even say it wrong. But I can't stay here for long, but I am willing to be amicable if you have questions. It's not often I get to be in this domain.
I have several.
So long as they don't include her name, we're fine.
Whose name?
The Queen.
Oh,
Las Pellas.
yeah. Can
Yeah, no.
Can
We've gotten used to
talk?
not.
Can we talk elsewhere? I kind of have a question about something you said to me that I've still been trying to figure out.
Which is,
Rapid, unimportant, or important question before Sola's catch up. Reef points to Orion's sword. Spirit of that thing wants us to release him, to send him back into another world. Is that as terrible of an idea as it sounds?
that is a creation of pride. I don't have time to explain that, and honestly, I don't have the energy to if I wanted. Basically, something very powerful made a tool a very long time ago. Unfortunately, that tool got ejected and it ended up here because people don't like having a gun pointed to the head of their leaders. If it wants to get away from you, that's probably for the best. God forbid that girl's bound to him. It would be a very bad time if she was.
She is.
Well,
Will she
that's
get
very
power from it?
unfortunate for you, isn't it?
All right. I'll figure out the rest. Thank you.
it's intended to kill things of similar power to the person who created it. So enjoy. You have the keys to the world. And what did you want?
Uh, um, I don't even know if I should ask this for everybody. The You said a message for whoever holds the chains.
She gestures over to Orion. Her chains. They're broken. The Queen's probably noticed by now.
Oh, okay. All right. So the message is for her?
What was the message again?
Just that basically it was just my mother is a scion.
Oh, yeah. So it was referencing
Is-
Orion, but the message was for you. Because I believe that the message was a multiple part thing.
The note I have was that if I remember correctly, 'cause I don't know which episode it was in. She said to Solstice, I believe, to deliver a message to she who holds the chains that your mother was a scion.
Oh, to she who, or to she who holds the
To the one
chains?
who holds the
The
chains?
one who holds
The
the
one who
chains.
holds the
Got it.
chains.
Yeah. Yeah, he was basically saying, she was basically saying that Orion was your pet. She was being an asshole.
Oh. Oh.
Just being a cryptic asshole.
Okay, awesome. That's glad and stored. I've been thinking about that for a while. Um, you also mentioned something about a great loss. What does that mean?
You've experienced a lot of forgiveness with your powers. Not everybody is so lucky. There are worlds where your powers would cost people's lives, people's souls, maybe multiple. I have seen the destruction of worlds for the simple gains that man may wish to achieve. You can do things of great power for effectively free. Don't take that for granted. The power that I pass down to you is, you stop shaking it. The power
What?
that I pass
Great
upon you.
power.
Huh?
Got the power of you. Stop janking it.
Yeah, the fact.
Oh,
God,
shit.
God damn it. Let me close Lumia HUD because I cannot focus with fucking Jake and go away.
It did come at a great cost. She's less Lumia.
Oh my God. I just forget to hide the thing every fucking wizards, and then it's just there and I deal with it, so I just get bombarded with gifts the whole fucking time I'm trying to focus every single session. God. The power I give to you is incredibly unique. It comes from my world specifically. You have the power to shape the world as you see fit, but at great cost to yourself. It's why many people who call themselves scions have trained their entire lives to make their body able to handle a fraction of the power they have. I wouldn't recommend giving it a shot.
What kind of train should I go through? What can I even imagine harnessing this power now? Is there?
I don't know what your limits are. I barely talk to you.
Yeah, I've noticed.
I prefer to keep separate from this world.
Yeah, noticed that too.
Reef floats over a mug that says "Mom of the Year" on it.
I
Thanks. And for what it's worth, I could have been a bit more agreeable. I don't like seeing potential wasted. I suppose it would have been easier to convince you to work with me should I have not been so harsh. She's saying this to Alice, by the way.
Harsh doesn't even come close to how you behave. I don't. Before you go back, what did I ever do to you?
I'm sorry, you asked that and I got blood immediately after. You're like, what'd I ever do to you? And then immediately, blood.
Bleh.
You and your people went somewhere you didn't belong. And for you specifically, truthfully, I don't think you did.
Have you ever heard of having a simple conversation instead of trying to freaking? I thought you were gonna try to end me.
I was.
That's your first reaction when someone does something you don't like.
I second the conversation part. This kid looks down his hands.
She just kind of like shrugs. That's how it works in the void. That's how it has to.
Okay, fine.
You just really hit her like. You see a competitor, you have to crush them. That's how it is.
We just we just wanted to learn about how the world works. Now we're not competing with anything.
Well, regardless. She's like she that's basically as close as you're going to get from her from like an apology, which is very much not much of one, you know? Yeah, what's up?
Narrative that could work for that is that it begins with curiosity and ends with conquering.
Yeah.
Oh,
Basically, the way that she sees it is that you are someone of a lot of potential, and with you not being basically, if you're not in service to her, you are a threat.
Gotcha.
Reef is just mentally laughing to himself that this is exactly how people are in the freaking waste, anyways. He's totally used to this shit.
You're just like, family. Reminds me of home.
Uh,
I know you just said about wanting to distance from this world, but it would be nice to hear from you every once in a while.
Believe
Or a
me, you
better way to
don't want the
contact you.
consequences of me sticking around. And I don't either. I finally got rid of that witch, and I prefer to keep it that way.
Not even really a simple hi, how are you every once in a while?
Do you want the Glass Palace to hunt you down?
They kind of already are with she's around.
not really. We're under. They're more worried about her destroying the world.
Yeah, if anything, they're gonna kill Orion before they kill you, so I mean.
I mean, look, no, but at the same time, I don't know why they would, because I don't know anything. Like, great,
That's
awesome.
good.
Like, there's nothing left back in Moon Cradle. The house is gone. Got ripped down by storms.
Seems like you started a new life regardless.
Yeah.
And it's about time that I get on my way. I wouldn't trust that girl if your life was going to depend on it specifically. She kind of like
Trust girls
points to
who is-
Orion.
Oh, we don't. Don't worry about it.
Perfect. Seems you might have some sense after all. I've been looking forward to cashing in on that favor. Oh, and for what it's worth, she snaps her fingers, and Alice, another set of coordinates is added to your arm.
Does that hurt? Because when
No.
I did myself, that okay.
No, it just kind of like brands itself like a tattoo.
Well, that was a lot less pain than when I did it. Thank you.
You're using a knife to carve into the meat. I have a scalpel.
Scalpel would still hurt.
And she like snaps her fingers and just you see just a like a flashbang and she's gone.
Right after the flashbang, you see like a singular tear rolls down Soul's cheek. It's like, oh, we gotta get out of here.
Tara's gonna. Is it okay for Tara to give Soul a pat?
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Okay. She's gonna pop over and give Soul a pat and go, "Hey, I can really tell that didn't turn out the way you wanted it to. I'm sorry."
Yeah, no, it really didn't. Still no,
If it makes you
nothing
feel
more.
better.
What's up, sorry? Breakfast?
What's up, Purpose?
Say if it makes you feel any better. My mother was kind of a piece of shit too, so
I don't even know her enough to make that decision.
Think
That's
you
the first I've
can.
ever had a. Well, look, that's the first time I've ever had a conversation with her that wasn't a fucking riddle. Oh, I see the point now.
That still kind of was.
Orion's just gonna like she grabs the sword by the hilt and is kind of just using it as a fucking cane to hold herself up.
Hey,
There-
my parents sold me to the Fae as an infant.
It's just, I don't know. I was hoping to maybe get some answers, and I think I just had more questions.
Yep.
I think what she's referring. Oh my! Wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
For what? Oh, well, that's an option if you wanted to go down that route. Basically, the TLDR of how psionic powers work, they're ripped directly from a different system. The idea is that you are literally like you're not asking magic to do it for you. You are rewriting the universe as it is. That's very painful to do. Not many people can do that. Scions spend their entire life basically training like fucking Goku to be able to do like simple shit. If you get enough of them together, they can do crazy shit like open up work gates and shit. Um, they are ludicrously overpowered for the sake of every time they cast a spell, even if it's like to light a candle, they have to sacrifice a great deal of pain, at the least. It's what makes them be able to be powerful. Scions in that world typically have to undergo like uh, classes for decades to be able to control their powers properly. You're a wizard, so you're kind of built different, but it's still going to be not a fun time. It's kind of a, oh shit, shit's fucked, I need to get out of this type of deal. Unless you just want to fucking maim yourself, I guess. Have fun.
So this would be a
Basically, I've given you an anti-material rifle, but it has to shoot you too.
I wonder what would happen if said rifle was pointed at, well, I don't know, the Queen of the Glass Palace.
I don't know.
Be amusing, wouldn't it?
Only way to find out.
That will certainly kill you.
We don't know, do we?
I mean, based on the description we just had. I assume that was not for me to hear in character.
Scion. Why is this thing start to sound? Is it from?
Hmm?
Oh, this is the moment where I found out I was spelling Scion wrong.
It's from Stars Without Number revised. I'm not using the exact system. I'm using the concept.
Well, I've been. How are you spelling it?
Psion.
Cool. I've been spelling it P-S-Y-O-N
That's fair.
for since you've introduced the name.
But yes, Orion might need life work. She's like hobbling over. She's like slowly. She's like.
Oh shit! Hang on. He's gonna rush down to go help you. Sorry. I didn't mean to rush off like that.
I'm fine. Just in pain.
Yeah. No. Right. Okay. Alice, you
Suppose I
coming
need,
too?
suppose I need to talk to the Queen of the Glass Palace about this before she sees what happened, probably from her end.
Oh, I'm sure she already knows. Given her.
Yeah,
So wait a minute. If Sherry knows,
It's
then
probably
she
not long
knows.
till we hear about it.
Well, I mean, you heard what Spark said. Will they be coming for me now?
not if she doesn't know you're tied to you're communicating with Spark.
Yeah, but obviously she knows what just happened with this. She knows Spark is here
No, she
or was
doesn't.
here.
She knows that the chains that were binding Orion have been ripped because she was maintaining that from her end.
Yeah. She had like 3 separate contingency plans for Orion, and all 3 of them haven't gone well, and so she's like, It's like, well, that didn't go to plan.
I
Yeah,
wonder if this would have happened sooner if Andromeda just gotten through the door when he was trying to.
that is what he was trying to get to, yes.
Anyways,
what would you think? Sorry? I'm having trouble hearing because it's storming very loud.
oh, so we made a comment about about wondering if this would have happened sooner had Andromeda been successful in his mission.
Oh, yeah.
Either way,
Yeah, if a
go ahead.
completed version of you were to exist, there would have been a full fucking crusade. There would have been no mercy.
On who? What?
Oh, don't worry about it.
You.
Anyway.
Alright, I'll go.
You don't get to fucking oh no anyways, me bitch.
Alright, I'll go write up something for the queen and for my queen too, and we'll see what they say. Alright, Orion. Uppies, Reef Telecity medically lifts her
It was
arm.
like rotating in the air. Like,
We're getting you to bed.
I'm fine.
You really aren't.
I've been worse.
I prescribe pancakes.
Pancakes
know.
sound nice.
Wait, before Alice gets by, Soul's gonna turn and be like, "Are you okay?"
I'm fine.
All right, just want to make sure.
What was that she burned onto your arm, anyways?
Those coordinates, yeah.
This should go back to where I came from.
Oh,
Oh,
and she knew where that was?
Apparently.
God, I hope your people are still there.
Yeah.
I guess we'll find out when I get a chance to go. We've got a ship to dismantle for now.
You
Yep.
planning on leaving us?
No.
Yippee.
Yay!
You can see like there are very deep bags under Orion's eyes. It's like she hasn't slept in months. Or years even.
Tara
Alright.
seems very relieved that she's staying. And I'm going to get you an ice pack for your freaking eyes, Orion.
Thank you.
She needs one for her soul if you got one. Um,
Yeah, I might.
so jump back to the martyr's roomlight.
no, Starlight. Shroomlight's the aloft ship.
I know.
The professor and Luna have been just like talking this entire time. Like, you can see like Luna's arms like shoot out to the side and her like gesture like that's what I'm like, what the fuck? And then the professor's like, no, I've just been here. I just work here. You called me. Like, you were supposed to know. I don't fucking know what the hell is going on. I came down here. I didn't expect to find this shit. I just
Probably
went to get
better
some
that way.
cake.
We can have them bring you cake.
Their barbecue's very good.
Yeah, it is.
It's very good. Yeah. Yeah, bye. But yeah, you guys can definitely begin the deconstruction of these tools on the ship, and then the construction of them on the or well, the taking them off and putting them onto the other ship with the help of the kobolds and our lovely Professor Man's help in getting us to disconnect the flower from the ship is definitely something that is feasible. It probably only take about a week. By the time the term is over, you'll probably have access to that.
So I'm sorry. What parts are we adding? Did we ever decide what we're actually transferring over?
Basically, your ship will gain the ability to just like pop into the void. It can just do void travel now. It's not gonna be it's not gonna be winging it with the ring. It can just do it.
Cool. So
That's
minus
fucking
one punch
sick.
ring plus one better stable actual good system. Cool.
Yeah.
Should we worry about that flower trying to regrow again?
I think it's pretty dead.
Okay.
But
Well, wasn't the
we can.
wait a minute? What wasn't that bit of flower how they actually traveled? If it's dead, how are we going to use it?
We're not. We have Alice.
Yep.
We've got a goat.
I am a critical part of your ship operating, and you also need a pilot who knows how to actually get to places in the void. You're not. You can get into it. You don't know where to go without me.
Right.
Go bug.
I'm your navigation system essentially.
No. Not saying anything against
GPS.
you.
Go bug.
It's
Goat
just,
positioning system.
No, it's nothing against you or having you, navigate. It's just more just the realization of taking my home into the void. Right.
Oh, you'll be fine. And Wraith, for what it's worth, I remember you taking that red was it band from me ages ago.
Oh, you mean the thing from back when I was just still a thief?
Yeah. Thanks for that. she's just kind of like she's like half joking around. She's like, bruh.
I mean, I do what I'm paid to do.
Same.
So, does this mean you can just say whatever you want now?
That is correct.
Huh.
It's nice to finally meet you guys.
What's your favorite color?
Red.
Me too.
God, I could have avoided so much shit if I could have talked. If he's not going after Nova, that's all I care about. Doing some DM, some DM mails.
Esther says, or fuck. Hi, Esther. Queen of the Glass Palace says understood.
There you go.
Oh, that's not good.
What's up, Wreath?
Let's get Orion to bed, and I will tell you after.
Okay. Sounds good.
Sleepy time, crew.
I'm not.
That's the ship.
I'm not an old woman.
Yeah, you go to bed.
What was that saying? Where was that, Orion?
I'm not an old woman.
Yes, you are. You're so sleepy.
You might not be an old woman, but you just got your brain shattered, so.
They just sound like a Draugr speaking. There we go. We're back out at the ship. We have tactfully avoided the barbecue sales that are still going on. It looks like it's starting to calm down, but they have been there have been like several shipments of new meat, but it seems like they're finally kind of losing interest in what's been going on. The feeling like my bones are rattling out of my teeth is gone.
That's good.
Oh, it's only a few more days until tournament. Or rather, it should be coming up soon.
Can we put Orion to bed so I can relay this message to the party?
Sure. It sounds good. Your friend probably needs some rest. That was Mark speaking.
Oh. Mark was telling us about the tournament.
Yeah. Holy
Well,
shit.
sorry, what did you say about the tournament?
He basically said it's
Just to
coming up
check.
soon. Go ahead, sorry.
So why are you competing in this anyways, Mark?
My home is on the outskirts of the waste, and because of that, there's not really much of the Queen's influence. So the laws that would normally bind wizards don't apply. They're able to come out and do whatever they please. We have a number of artifacts that have ended in our care over time, and wizards have sought to take them, oftentimes by force. My magic may be weaker, but it's still there. I would like to get them out of my land. It's very important to me.
Oh, I mean, if I mean, we can help
Would
you
you
with
like
that, right, guys?
would yeah? I mean, would you
Yeah, we.
like to make a deal, Mark?
Yeah,
Because I assume you know who your competition is.
Oh, I'm
it's
very
us.
much aware. Unfortunately, without being in the position of power or having that power, there's not much I can really ensure. And I, he kind of pauses for a second, and then like raises his like left arm sleeve and shows like an insignia that's burned into the back of his hand, or his wrist rather, which is the very same that we've seen in the more like Templar esque area of the Endless City. I've signed a contract already. I have to fight.
Wait, he signed a contract with a Templar?
Yeah, they signed him in order to basically they were looking for someone because their previous combatant
But they're
mysteriously disappeared and so they had
but
to
they're the but they're the ones who nominated Luna.
were the Templar the ones surrounding Luna?
Yeah,
Were they?
yeah,
No, this is siblings of Shuar.
yeah. That's the Templar.
Oh,
Oh, I didn't know that.
well, I fucked up. Okay, well then, fuck it. He's got a fucking thing from Greed then. That's
All
fine.
right.
Or just retcon that he has a fucking cog on the back of his hand.
Cool.
Who's the cog?
Greed.
That's Greed. They're the rivals of the
It,
Kobold.
Yeah.
Greed, Greed, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Literally just a
I
giant fat dude who's very strong and hasn't been able to be killed yet. He's entered the tournament a few times himself, but every time we've heard of him, it's always been a story about him killing his competition.
Ah, great.
Yeah.
well, I mean, if you
Well, I
could
mean,
negotiate with these guys here, I'm pretty sure they'll be happy to try not to kill you.
For what it's worth,
well, I
I'd
mean,
rather not kill you myself.
yeah, and I mean,
Perfect.
especially afterwards, we can still help you. Especially now knowing this is going on, it's not something we'll let slide.
I wonder how you'd respond if you knew some of the artifacts we have control over. A lot of things drift out of the waste into our care. He kind of like taps the thing on his back. Very, very, very important things find their way to where I come from.
All the more reason to take it seriously.
Yeah, you already have us persuaded. We want to help.
He kind of like he's just like, please don't covet our riches as your own,
Sure.
and don't
Yeah,
take offense to it if I, for the safety of my people, have to kick you out when you're done.
All right.
is this gonna be one of those like the fucking end of Fallout One, the original one? It's like you're a hero. I need you to leave.
That's kind of what's
Yes.
happening. He doesn't trust wizards at all. Um, it's not clear what they have access to. I know. He knows, but you're free to try and convince him. But um, he's he's very intent that if wizards are there trying to covet things now, they probably won't stop in the future. And for
I mean,
what's
if
worth,
they
he
go
did
there,
just meet you today.
no, it's fair. But it's like if they go there once again after we relocate these artifacts to a safer spot and find out that the artifacts are fucking gone, and they're in the in the care of us if they really want to find out. I think that word like that will travel quick. Either they'll come after us and fucking fuck around and find out,
Oh,
or they'll stop coming.
don't worry
Either
about. Don't, like he's gonna
no,
do what he has to do to keep his people safe.
I was seeing that out of character. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, well, don't worry about the details. He's
No, I know.
the
Sorry.
it,
Go ahead. Please. Sorry.
it's not necessary. It can become complicated because it also means he's also implying that there's going to be worse things that are going to keep coming to his people. So we'll figure
Oh,
it out.
okay. Sorry, I follow now. Even if we take the artifacts, more are going to show up. It's a
Yes.
never-ending cycle. Okay, got it.
It's
Sorry.
also a thing where like he's very much like, I don't want what we have to get back into circulation as well. He's very protective of the things that they have come into possession of.
Which is understandable.
We don't know what that's like. Pokes at his bag.
Yeah.
Well, Professor, I assume you want to get some sleep. We should get Orion to bed as well. What time is it? Is it evening?
It is.
Okay, yeah, we should probably turn for the night. Can I offer you anything to eat before you go?
No, I had quite enough from your friends before who took me here. They were very insistent.
Okay, good. Good.
And
Sad sounds of no pancakes.
and I am I don't want to hurt you, but unfortunately I do have to give a reminder because of the people I've seen and the wizards I've faced up to this point. Which, no offense, I hope I can trust you, but hurt my people and hell will be paid.
Hurt?
We wouldn't dream of it. I'm
I mean,
pretty
we
sure
would,
for all of us
but
when I say that. Breathe.
we get it. It's pretty normal
He's-
for people to ask us that. Don't worry about it.
Thank you.
Son of you, yeah, you're gonna give me gray hairs.
Look, when you're like me and you're obviously like me, it's better to be honest about the murder when you're trying to be honest in the conversation.
I've only killed one guy and it was in self-defense.
I know, but I wasn't talking for you. I was talking for me.
You hear like Mark's laugh, like, so that's where the previous one went.
Huh?
Yes.
Huh? But previous what?
The previous combatant
Oh,
for
right.
greed. Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah.
As far as he's concerned, that's another wizard that doesn't exist, so he's pretty fucking chuffed about that. He really does not like wizards.
Understandable.
All right, I will see. I don't have transport.
I hate to say this, but we can arrange that.
He,
Where you
he
trying
kind
to
of
go?
like he kneels down. He's like, "Can you please?" Like the cool demeanor's gone. He's just like now on his hands. He's like, "I'm very sorry."
Either we can give you a kobold ride, or I can just give you a ride. We're depending on how far you have to go.
Either will do. I just need to get over to the other side of the city or the kingdom. It doesn't have to be.
Hey, Fire.
Go ahead.
Hey, Firefist.
Yeah.
Do you mind doing him a favor and arranging for some transport?
Why don't we just airship him? We have the literal airship.
They're working on
Oh.
it. The MOS is grounded for right now.
You have a car.
I mean, they haven't
Yeah, but
started
I wanna
work on
hear
it
you-
yet. Like you
I want
just,
to hear.
you know.
I want to hear what he has to say. I don't want to be not here for the thing.
Okay.
Jarvis can drive it.
He has to be here
So-
too.
Fine. I wanted to spare him the kobolds.
Fine. You know, hang on. Soul's gonna just go get the car. I forgot about the other door being blocked. All right, he comes on the front. All right, man, hop in.
He's like, thank you. Thank you. I didn't have a car. I just was trying to get some cake.
He gets in. The moment the door is closed, fucking a plume of smoke. There's boom.
Ryan's gonna like
Soul's
hobble
about,
indoors.
Soul's about to set a lap record.
1 second. I got what's a good one?
Oh, I see what's happening.
Let's go for this one.
Yep, that's yep. Complete with the tail light streams coming
Yep.
out the back of it.
Oh, and watch the others not letting me listen to it anymore. Freaking.
Off in the very far distance, we just see smoke blooming as he's fucking hauling it. There is a like a glass trail underneath where he's been hauling it.
After a little while, fucking slides back around straight into the garage.
I like the implication that somehow you just fucking unlocked like a secret 500th gear to your car.
It's fine tuned, man. It's like the Fast and Furious movies where it's actually like 25 gears in a row.
You just hear like distant as you've been like hauling ass, we just hear like distant pulses of like sound barriers being broken, windows shattering, people screaming.
He actually when no one was looking, he added a bit of the ship's ley line to his engine.
And I am glad we sent him with that to Greed's neighborhood. That's gonna go over great.
Oh yeah, huh? He's been keep sliding through Green's area.
You just like drift by him while flipping him off.
I slid in, stopped, let the professor out, went, "Hey you look a bitch," and just peeled out.
Fucking love that.
He's just like spinning the car in like a donut with a fucking middle finger out the window for driving off.
Yes, yes. I. You've been fucking incredible.
So
Actually, for reference, for those who I don't know if I've actually ever shown the rest of the party what Soul's card looks like. It looks like this.
like your IRL car but with a roof.
No. I have an Impala. That's a Challenger.
Same thing.
Beautiful. Yes, exactly. That's it right there. Glorious.
The middle finger is perfect.
Orion,
Yeah, sorry.
don't take this the wrong way, but I may need to enter your brain again sometime soon.
Figured. That's okay. You can do that whenever.
Cool.
Honestly, I can't be fucked anymore. I need to get rest. I was fighting it off. I'm fucking tired. You just hear like a
Good
loud,
morning.
like she's like, just hits the door with the sword, just like whap, like a maze, and then flops on the bed.
So, Firefist, you coming in? And Alice?
You're just
Yeah.
mesmerized by the car that just hauled ass by them. Yeah.
So Jimmy is in a good mood and is happy that she undid the seals. However, he says the Kid Orion that was in her head, which was her true self, is now gone and something else is in there.
Do we want to know what's in there?
Depends what if the what is just her now actual true self. That's okay. If it's something else, then yeah, kind of we do.
What is it?
I don't know. I might have to go
Oh,
delving in there.
well,
Which I'm not particularly looking forward to, but I might have to go do that.
okay. So Jimmy is who again?
The whatever spirit of her, that former wielder of her sword,
Right,
that is sealed up with the sword.
right. And what did I'm sorry, just real quick. Did you say the Queen said understood out loud earlier?
Yes.
Okay. What does the Queen understand?
I let them know that the band chains have been ruptured in the process of taking care of another world-ending threat, and that I will continue to observe, and that Orion is still behaving like herself.
Great. Okay. Um, what do we do?
I mean,
I'm making
right?
fucking pancake.
Understandable. Thank you. Thank you, Tara. That sounds fantastic right now.
I'm rolling for some fucking pancakes.
Oh, I'll make some pancakes.
I am going to go
Take a
penetrate
roll.
Orion's head.
Oh yeah, that's a 2.
These
Let's
pancakes are gonna
go.
be fire. With Luna helping you, those pancakes are fire. She's just like, she like adds butter to the pan. Yeah, sure. You can enter my brainium cranium.
Alright, I'll just use a D's Nuts token, because I don't like spending shit.
Sure.
Good luck rooting around in there. Oh, you're in another room. Never mind. My bad.
You just yell it down the hallway.
So I'll leave this up to the party.
Yeah.
We can either do that, or we can have a downtime where you guys in the meantime can talk on stuff. It's kind of up to you how you want to take it. We probably have time to do both, but it's kind of I'm just seeing where the vibe is. Do you want me to go to like a Wreath solo segment for a bit, or what would you like me to do on this one?
It is currently 22:17, by the way.
Yes.
Just a shout
Yes,
out.
we have 45 minutes.
Well, normally,
Uh,
Kara and Firefist, I think, leave around like 10:30. Yeah.
That's
No,
new, but
11.
okay.
Oh.
11.
Yeah, we always end at 11. Bean.
I don't know
It's
why.
been that way a while.
I-
Just had the wires crossed for a second. That's okay.
Yeah. I think like 10:30 I'll probably go take the shit yourself medication, and hopefully it doesn't make me do that. So, yay. It'll basically just be I eat a brownie, I eat a pill, and then I come back. So,
Yeah. I get
the horror, I
So,
know.
so quick mind probe, and then we roleplay a bit with what's left.
Sure. Sounds good to me.
Is that good for everybody else?
That's great by
Yeah,
me.
good with it.
I mean, Orion just had a bunch of mind stuff going on. Makes sense that needs to be a little bit of a mental tidying.
You still there, Vivi?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, just checking.
See. I know I have a song somewhere here that's like what it's supposed to be. What is it? Oh, I know exactly what I need. Hold on. I have wanted an excuse to play this for so long. If you start playing, I will stab you. Um, do not you dare even. Ah, there we go.
Is this Cat Notebook again?
Yes,
Yes.
Brilliant.
I love Cat Notebook so much. It would crush me to figure out its AI. It would kill me. I would lose faith in humanity. But Reef, you don't have to try as much this time, but you fucking crush these nuts over just in case. Just in case. Just saying, fuck that shit. I'm not dealing with it. I'm figuring out. We're good. Um, and your vision goes dark once more, and you end up in a familiar-ish location. To your left, there is a road that leads to like a little path that leads to where Jimmy is, and to your like in front of you, there is a path that leads to a semisphere of glass. To your right, there is no longer a path, and little Orion, is nowhere to be found. As a matter of
There
fact,
any
go ahead. Sorry,
are there any other entities there?
not that you see. And something
Okay.
interesting, these paths are always active. It doesn't seem like little Orion needs to activate them anymore.
Hmm. That could be alarming. All right. Wreath is going to walk to the big domey path.
Sure. As you get closer, it becomes obvious that this, or becomes in your vision, that this semisphere is it's kind of like a grid of triangles of glass, covered by kind of like bordered by a strange bluish tinted metal. And you can hear just consistent, incessant whispering from the bars of metal. It's like a spell's being cast repeatedly over and over and over again on the glass. Yep,
I peek in. Do I see what's there?
you do. You see that there is a very, very tired-looking woman who has a lot of restraint on her. It looks like even part of her face has been concealed by a metal-like guard. Uh, there are chains that are just fucking bolted into the ground. There's a metal bed. There's a metal like tea set with a few flowers around it. There is a metal table and chairs, and this woman in there looks very, very tired. There is a door on the side of this semisphere.
Uh, okay. I go open it.
Yeah, it seems like there's a hole for the crest that the glass palace uses.
To open it?
Yep. The second you input your glass palace crest, it kind of insets into the door, and the door slides open.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Wreath walks in. Hello.
The lady in there opens up. I'm trying to get to where I can draw this because I think it'd be fucking cool. I've had it in my brain. You see, as they like raise their head and open their eye to look at you, their eyes, they don't look normal. And they're darting back and forth, up and down. They are seemingly scanning you. Um, they look about like
Okay, so Naruto villain. Got it.
yep, Naruto villain. their very fatigued voice carries over. Wraith, it's nice to finally see you.
Hi.
Hi, welcome in. Let me pour you a drink. She picks
Uh,
up like this teapot and pours some like strange what you assume to be tea in two little cups.
Sorry to ask, but who are you?
Well, that's a bit hurtful, but I can't say I blame you. I'm your friend, Orion. Duh,
You're. Hmm.
I guess I have other titles too, but
So
welcome in.
you're the. So you're the real Orion.
That would be correct. Built like a
What did the
cage.
queen? What did the queen do to you?
She it has a deep sigh and sets down the like different cups on either side. There is a small like white lotus that's floating in each cup.
Mhm.
Well, are you sure you want to know? Normally, people take deals to get information out of me. I won't make you take one, but this information will put your life in jeopardy.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I have quite a bit of that information that puts my life in jeopardy at this point.
She like chuckles a little bit. That's fair.
Oh. Um. Shall we fade to black and you message me after the game for this one,
Oh sure, you want to keep
Trust
it
or
in the private?
it depends. Is this gonna be like world shattering stuff like you did last time, or is it how do you want to play this?
It is going to be rather like what the fuck information. So if you want to keep that private, that's fine. Um, just let me know what we're doing.
Ah, fuck it. I've made these guys suffer enough. Go ahead.
uh, you kind of see that there's like even spines that are like stuck in Orion's body, to keep her still. I I'm the Glass Palace's archive. This version of me, anyway. I'm the one who
Oh,
records, and I'm the bookkeeper.
I see.
She out there probably doesn't know this. I do good to keep my secrets safe, even from myself. I don't have a choice.
Clearly, I
I,
understand that.
yeah, I thought you might, with the Fae.
Mm, all right. So you're the bookkeeper of the Glass Palace, and the queen doesn't know that?
She's the one who made that the case. I'm
Ah,
not an orphan. I'm the daughter.
oh,
Wait, what?
the daughter of the previous bookkeeper?
I was born
Or
into royalty.
wait, are you like the actual queen?
I'm the princess, but she doesn't give up her throne, not even for her own child.
Oh, Oh, I see. Well, yeah, that I see where you're coming from on the this information might kill me kind of thing.
Ryan should be fine. I can keep Jimmy entertained at the least. It would be preferable if we found a way to get him out, but not even I know how.
I mean, do you know? Because right now he's trying to have us put him back, send him out of our world in exchange for basically us not still having him here to attract all the stuff he's there to kill.
That sounds
Like,
about right from what I understand.
but like, is that what's the downside to us that's not being told?
He doesn't know how to leave either, and he's prepared to give me up as a cost.
Ah,
We're not supposed to have access to this, and he's not supposed to be trapped within his own weapon.
clearly.
Beyond that, that's what I know as far as he's concerned.
I see. We'll have to keep researching then to figure out what we can do. Is
Oh,
there anything?
go ahead,
Yeah.
Jimmy.
Oh, I was gonna say, is there anything I can do for you in the meantime?
I prefer if you didn't mention this when the queens are around. I'm not going to be as useful combat wise as I was. Probably. I'm hesitant on what powers I let her have.
I see.
This cage is
Well,
designed to do. I can only imagine something unpleasant if I try to escape.
yeah, I can see that. I'll relay that to the party so we try not to get you into a fight over the queens or something.
It would be appreciated. Thank you.
Sounds good. What about Jimmy? Like do you know how that vision I had can come to pass? Where the world gets destroyed by, well, you?
If he gains control of this vessel entirely, it is entirely possible that he will seek to escape by any means necessary. I happen to know of a few areas of interest he might try to go after. And
I see.
I fear that. What exactly did you see?
I described the vision of Orion with the wings flying above the destroyed landscape with a sword and the dead dragon.
Ah, it's possible someone was able to either get a dragon to the center of the waste or someone was able to manufacture one. In either case, if that is the case, that's very troubling.
Hmm.
He's he doesn't like dragons, and I assume it
Yeah,
has something to do with his purpose with the sword.
like he seems to have relayed that to me as much too.
Well, I don't I don't honestly know. I'd suggest keeping him as far away from dragons as you can.
Hmm. That's fair. Is there anybody else in here, or are you the other person he mentioned seeing?
It's probably me. As far as I know, we've only ever had 3 people.
And little Orion, what of her? That was just temporary?
She was just what was left behind of our consciousness when the deal was in place.
Yeah.
She still had the memories to function as she was, but she didn't have the memories of how she got to be how she was. It was a
Hmm.
precaution so the devil didn't have to worry about her remembering her position or the things she learned prior to making the deal.
Fair enough.
It's a lot easier to hold a contract over someone's head if they don't even know the terms.
Yep. Is there anything else we need to worry about when it comes to him, actually?
I think he's probably more preoccupied with the fact that his kingdom has gone to ruin over the time. I mean, you've seen how he's been treated as a joke by many entities who've seen him. It's likely
Oh,
he's
yeah.
going to be focused on regaining his pride for a while.
That'll keep him busy for a bit.
It should. And if it doesn't, she sighs. I hope he doesn't come after Nova.
Do we need to take any precautions there?
She shouldn't go off on her own trying to seek vengeance against anyone other than myself, but I do hope she's fine. She may hate me now, but I still think of her as a childhood friend. And truthfully, she's one of the only people in this world I've actually cared for. No offense.
That done taken. All right. Besides that, yeah, I mean, I don't think me attempting to bust you out of this is a smart idea, fortunately.
Probably not. Hopefully, the 4 of
Oh,
you can
well.
figure something out.
All right, I will. 4?
4. The 4 of you. You have
What,
Solstice, Terra, Fire Fist, and Meath.
and Alice?
Who?
You don't you don't see Alice?
Am I supposed to?
Yeah, she's our sixth party member.
There are gaps in my memory, but I don't recall anybody by that name.
We literally just can you see what's outside of what we've been doing?
I noticed you had some interaction with the sword. I noticed that Spark had come in, but I don't know of anyone called Alice.
Oh, that's troubling. Dallas is the one who called Spark to our world to help us defeat the creature from the void.
Ah, that's a problem for a later date. I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah, it's okay. She's been traveling with the party longer than I have, so it is. That's a that's a troubling blind spot. Okay, we'll have to figure that one out. All right, I will go and relay the information to the party minus the princess thing because I'm trying to not tell them the things that will get them killed.
That would be preferable. And
Eh,
for what it's worth, and also as an extra precaution, please don't let Luna use the crown on me again.
I will tell her.
Orion might be fine with it, but she might bite off more than she can chew. She's already done so before.
Yeah, I will make sure Luna is informed of the potential consequences. I don't want to mess with your balance of power if we're keeping him in check.
Appreciate it. And good luck.
Thank you. I will, if I need to reach out again, I will come back, I suppose. Unless there's a deal we can make for me to talk to you directly when needed, like I have with Jimmy.
It's preferable that you just come back.
Understood.
To your shock, she says, Esther cannot see me here.
Ah,
She didn't want her
that's
own secrets getting out either.
yeah. Ah, I see. Okay. Understandable. I will get back to the party.
Have a good one.
I would say you too, but I doesn't look like that's appropriate.
I've been like this for years. I'll be fine.
Understood. Hopefully we can help. Reef bows. Take care, Ryan, and heads off.
Yeah.
Out of
You appear back in the ship as people are enjoying pancakes.
Okay, I have something I want to do real quick. I just thought about this to be kind of funny.
Yeah.
When there's a ceiling fan above the table here. When you come back out, Solstice has taken a hot dog and attached to the end of one of his swords, tied the string end to the ceiling fan, and turned on the fan. So there is a hot dog swinging around on the fan on the end of one of his swords. He is overjoyed by this.
That doesn't seem like responsible use of equipment.
Yeah, shit. The sword disappears, the hot dog falls to the table.
Aww.
What am I your father figure now? Why are you worried about me seeing shit?
No, you just spooked me.
Oh.
How'd it go?
I spoke to the real Orion.
What do you mean real Orion?
Oh no shit. What's going on?
There's a real Orion sealed in there, very painfully, I might add. Really nasty cage. She says she can keep Jamie distracted by now, but if Jamie, like the vision I took from the guy, was probably what would happen if he fully took over.
Oh,
But yeah, there's a real Orion in there that is trying to keep things under control. She did warn me to tell you guys no more or she may not be as useful in combat in the future because she has to temper what powers she gives the conscious Orion access to. So we should be careful, like Grand Queens and stuff. Orion might not be as powerful as she once was.
okay. Yeah, that's
Also,
fine.
she has specifically requested that you not use the crown on her again, Luna.
Understood.
We don't
So
really. What was that?
so the real Orion. What does
Orion's
that mean?
the Orion we have still has very limited access to her memories. There's she's still got a split consciousness thing going on. However, the actual Orion personality is not aware of Alice, which is a weird thing.
What?
Yeah, I mentioned Alice. She didn't even know who Alice was. So sorry, Alice. Something else is weird there.
Well, one more thing for the pile, I guess.
I don't even know. Okay.
Nah, I get you, Solstice.
Yeah, it's like I get because there's not even an explanation for it.
I mean,
Hmm.
There's a little more that I am choosing not to say for everybody's safety.
What do you mean safety? I thought one
Like,
of the things we agreed on was no more secrets. Did we agree that like 3 times?
no.
Maybe you weren't
Not
here
well,
for that.
no, that's probably why.
But
I would never agree
Yeah,
to that.
Solstice, that was between you and me, Bab.
we had a party one too. We all had a big.
You
Yes,
did
that wa-
before. That did
that was
happen.
Yeah.
that was at your first yearning tree visit, long before Wreath was in the party.
Oh,
There was the Yearning Tree one, and there was a second one on the ship afterwards when Firefist had his schizophrenia board in the living room.
Well, that
And
wouldn't be when I was around. So
Surprise,
well,
surprise! Wizards still have more secrets.
well, look, the point is,
surprise,
surprise, surprise.
surprise.
Nerfed.
That fucking no, that was fucking gorgeous. Holy shit!
Nice.
I
Thank you.
forget how far up you can throw your voice.
But-
years of training, but
Hell
Then
yeah.
it's
look,
like,
so I don't know what agreements you've made with the party in the past, but if I come across knowledge that I think does not benefit you and will kill you if it could kill you if I tell it to you, I'm gonna keep it to myself.
so are you saying that the information about our party member, the person we're
Yes.
traveling with day in day out, will kill us?
Yes.
Luna kind of pipes up. You know, the mark of a good mage is the ability to fuck. It's the ability to omit information. It's part of how you deal with the Fae safely. You can't lie, so your only choice is not to speak.
Well, yeah, but I feel like this is kind of a Trump situation. This kind of trumps that because, like,
It really doesn't.
we live with her.
They've lived with you for a long time. They didn't know what was going on inside of you.
Yeah, well, now they do.
I didn't know that you were my childhood friend. You don't
I
know
didn't
half the
know that
people I've
either.
had deals with. We don't know what
What?
the fuck goes on with Firefist.
Well, that's just Firefest.
Strokes.
He shrugs.
Well,
She like gives you like a small thumbs up with like a pancake in her mouth.
So you were there with us when we went to get the prisoner's mind for Vasha, right?
No,
Yes, you were.
Actually, no,
I
he
was.
wasn't.
I
No, I
think
He
so.
wasn't.
Huh?
No.
Wasn't?
There's entire wing. He wasn't. He had gone back to the ship.
That's
There are
true.
entire
Yeah.
there are entire wings of the prisons of the different palaces dedicated to people who just found out things they weren't supposed to. I am trusting you with the fact that I know something. Just the fact that I know something about Orion and you know is enough to get me killed.
That's fucking heavy.
So I'm trusting you with that, but I don't want to danger you further by telling you the full truth.
I mean, I guess I appreciate it, but if I'm understanding what was just told me earlier correctly, then my life is in danger just by me being alive.
Yes,
So
well, that's good. Well, no, not currently. It would be if they were believed they had a reason to suspect you were maintaining ties with Spark. Was my gathering of that knowledge thing, which is another fun part about this whole thing.
fine. I'll stop pressing about it then.
Reef's tail forms a mouth, grabs the entire a pancake plate, and then spits out the plate.
Oh,
What the
lad.
fuck?
Goes back to his corner and writes some notes.
Fantastic.
Mouth.
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 I love how you got right up on the mic for that one.
Of course.
Mouth.
when you think about it, we have a really good chance of winning the tournament.
I mean, didn't we already have one to begin with?
Yeah, but I mean, now one of the combatants that we had to worry about, we don't have to worry about anymore.
I mean,
So
kind of
forgive me
still,
if I'm
kind
sorry.
of
Go
still
ahead.
need to slightly worry about him. He is gonna fight us for real, but he's not like he's not evil. But whatever deal he has with greed is pretty worrying. And there's still one more combatant that we don't know anything about.
That's true.
So, just out of curiosity's sake, is this tournament to the death?
No, you can't kill the other person, but you are allowed to wound them as much as you want.
You
As much as you
Y-
want?
you had said in the past that this death was allowed in this one.
Uh, have I?
Yes. Also, you've established that the previous queen had killed all her opponents.
Uh, I thought it was that she had killed everybody who was viable, so she just won by default.
Well, you had specifically started the mini tournament to say that the rules were different in that you were not allowed to kill for it.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. You got me. You got me. You caught me.
Just keeping you honest.
You caught me. Thank you. You got my mind working. Um, yeah, sorry. Much like actual Orion, my brain also keeps things from me. Um, yeah, so it is kind of anything goes.
Great.
Yep. You're allowed to do
So,
whatever you want.
by the way, and he turns to look at Wreath. I don't know if that phrase will work anymore, but I'd really like to try and just do things on my own this time.
I promised to you in exchange for you shooting me in the head that I would not use it again.
Yeah, but you're you, so I still feel like I need to be set.
I obey every deal I make, and we made a deal.
Fair. And he turns back around and sees me.
Of course, that assumes he doesn't have a deal to go against that deal they made beforehand.
That's not how I operate.
That we know of.
Luna, are you trying to make me
Sure.
paranoid?
I'm just teasing. I'm sorry. It's been a stressful day.
Yeah, you don't say.
It's fine. This is just how wizards go. It'll be okay. Besides, they're
Kara
good by
takes
then.
the ceiling hot dog, um, tilts her
Please.
head back,
Uh-huh.
horks, and tries to shoot the hot dog into the ceiling. I would like to roll for this.
Okay, yeah.
Wait, I'm sorry. You picked up the hot dog.
The ceiling hot dog
Yes,
that
and
you'd
you're
had
what?
before. I tilt my head back, let it fall into my throat, and I'm basically gonna try to like launch it into the ceiling, which I managed to do
Mhm.
with great success. I think. Let me check my sheet.
I mean, you can try acrobatics for that, sure. If you're trying to go for strength, you'd fail, but
I think she's going like a boom, like a
Yeah.
like a,
Yeah.
Oh my god.
yeah, I'll allow it.
Just me doing stuff in the background.
Yeah,
Don't mind me.
it just goes "Dum!" It's straight through one of like the little small cracks in the ceiling.
Thank you.
What the fuck?
You can't say shit. You were the one that was fucking tying it to the ceiling to begin with.
Yeah, but I didn't put it in the ceiling.
It's okay. I hear something crawling around
I-
there at night.
What?
Oh, well,
Yeah, you don't hear the vents every now and then? They kind of like tick, tick, tick. It's like something heavy in there.
weird, wild, fucking.
Oh,
Wouldn't know.
y'all haven't figured that out yet? Okay.
Huh? What do you mean?
Don't worry about it.
Well, hey, Luna, what do you mean? Fuck it. All right. Hey,
That's
Saber.
crazy. She leaves.
Hey, Saber.
Uh, yes, Captain.
Can you do me a favor, please?
Sure, Captain.
Can you don't need to call me Captain every time, by the way. You can just call me Soul or Solstice. That's fine too.
Sure, Soul Captain.
Shh.
Ah.
Okay. Can you check the ventilation system for any possible creatures or defects?
I do every night. They're fine.
Huh. I should have assumed you do that anyways. Okay. Thank you.
Affirmative.
I really need to see if I can mess with him a little bit more. He doesn't really need to call me Captain every time.
You realize he's
Yeah.
doing it intentionally to fuck with you, right?
Yeah, but I just specifically told him not to. Like-
And he's an AI with his own personality, and he's going to continue doing it to mess with you. You need to stop thinking of him as just a thing, man.
Well, I don't think it was a thing. I think it was a like I guess I just don't understand quite how he works.
The only reason I'm able to get him to do anything is because it's funny.
Huh. So he's I guess it's because I've never really had him. I've only ever known him as like the system that runs the ship. I've never. I mean, I've just now been able to access the enough of my brain to think about it more than that.
Yeah, seems to be a fully intelligent creature with a sense of humor. You might want to have a chat with him at some point.
Yeah.
Bro's
Yeah,
been living
Getting
with
to
his.
do
know
that.
your ship.
Yeah, I was gonna say Bro's been living with his roommate for years and never even bothered to say hi.
No, well, you remember he found the ship as the like mind fogged like original solstice. He didn't
Yeah,
really
yeah, yeah.
have the cognitive function to recognize what he was dealing with.
I get you.
They kind of just greet him, start calling him captain, kind of just roll with it, you know?
I like how no one's questioned the bathroom fork.
Huh? Oh, what
What?
is it?
That's how I eat my pie.
I'm sorry.
I need to eat my bath pie. Hopefully it's that and not for any other purpose.
I
Right.
hadn't paid attention, but I assume it's there as a joke on something.
I just found it really funny. It makes me laugh. It's just been there.
I like the
Amazing.
paper. I like the paper dragons just scattered about too, even in
The
the
paper dragons are
floorboards.
lovely.
Thank you.
There's one even in, like behind the bathtub.
Yeah. Also, I did leave the eggs in, by the way.
Oh my fucking god, you did. I am thrilled. Yeah, the map work looks absolutely lovely for the MOS.
Yeah.
Super jazzed about this.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Which what fucking shows in hell are about to get a hell of a lot fucking crazier.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Firefist, how do I don't really know how this works, but do you feel any different with, you know, Lucifer being back in town? Does that like mess with your powers at all?
So much, realistically. I mean, don't get me wrong. Lucifer's powerful and wants to act dominion, I'm the king of the goddamn land. But as I said before, power shifted a lot over the years, and it's not been kind to him or his environment. As far as I can tell, it's not even remotely phased.
Hmm. Okay.
If nothing else, hell being hot might just make it even amplify over time. We'll have to find out.
All right. Sounds good. Makes sense.
I want to drink.
Yeah. So, there was one time we did we drank something. We were way back in Hearthtown. I remember being absolutely awful. And it made me see weird things too.
LSD.
That's the
So
one.
say that, or you found Petty Boy's absinthe. Take your pick.
Or ayahuasca.
Yeah, I remember you guys being wizard wasted.
What do you mean you? What do you mean you remember? How do you remember some things but not others?
Oh, that was out of character.
Oh! Sorry.
Reed's been watching us this entire time, out of character, in character.
Yes.
Well, that would not be out of character for him to do. Y'all, I don't think y'all had everybody's attention back within the Hearthstone.
No, they were
No,
just
I
like,
mean,
oh, here's another fucking wizard party coming together of rejects. You know, it's fine. I'm sure this will be fine. But it's like they say, be kind to your C students because those are the ones who own the college.
I mean, there's a reason why everyone shudders when they hear the name Luna's Devils at this point.
Yeah.
Let's put a group of really powerful people in one airship and send them around the world. What could go wrong?
To be fair, they didn't put us in an airship. You just happen to have one.
And they let us keep it. I mean, they were gonna take over my cold, dead body, but they let us keep it.
I mean, what the fuck else was they gonna do? Wage war against their own land?
Yeah, true.
I mean, it's not. It's like, I mean, it's to be fair, I guess it's not the most uncharacteristic thing that's happened. There was that. On second thought, maybe I should.
No, wait. I want to hear this. What's up, Luna? What do you got?
Oh, queens do this stuff all the time. It's fine.
Do what? Just faff around?
Oh,
Or
yeah, but I mean, how do you think the prisoners got there? Do you think they just walked in on their own?
oh, you meant yeah? No, it's hmm.
So it's like, hmm.
I I don't I don't know. Unfinished thought.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
That's fine.
Regardless, I guess our course of action hasn't really changed. We win this, Fire Fist can enact peace upon the lands, and then we can get access to the archive.
Yeah.
I mean, now that I think about it, uh, are we even sure it's gonna work the way we think it is?
No, we never are. That's how this gig runs.
Right. Oh, and also, why was Orion so surprised that I don't have a contract?
Because you're a wizard.
Yeah, but I mean, he looks over at Sarah like, do I have one?
Should. Like the first
Yep.
thing they do when you become a wizard is make an oath. That's why we always have to accomplish quests, or the queen's like accuse
Yeah,
us of stuff.
You had to.
No.
You had to have when you started your training.
I
Remember?
don't remember. No, I don't remember taking an oath. I signed
It
a
would
bunch
have
of
been before
papers
you.
when I was. I don't think anything that included an oath.
Welcome to
The
being a
one,
wizard.
the one when you went from being in the preliminaries, they would have sworn you in before you joined the magical division. They wouldn't have allowed you. They wouldn't have trained you as a wizard without having you sign to the kingdom as a wizard beforehand.
Makes sense, but I have a moon cradle sigil. Wouldn't I have one that matches yours?
You pledged your loyalty to Mooncradle when you went there. You enjoyed it far more than you enjoyed the Endless City, and with good reason.
Remember, it was a joint effort between both places that conducted a lot of their operations, a lot of their more spicy operations in Spicy
Much
land.
of your paperwork, yeah, much of your paperwork was done in secret, man.
Wreath passes a copy of the oath to Solstice. It's in the book now. I just opened it at the right page.
Huh. You know, I wonder if mine still exists. If I took it and it was recorded at the facility's probably destroyed by now. What if they even took any of the paperwork with them?
The queens will just assume you're bound by the same rules as everybody else and will send the queens they will send their their people
no.
after you if you
I'm gonna come check out the oath. I don't know if I've actually read the whole thing yet.
I'm not saying that I'm going to go against it. I'm not going to try and just. I mean, I don't know. It'd be interesting, because our final goal and our past discussions and all that. If my oath is even still around, be
Sure.
an interesting card to play if it comes down to it. You feel?
I mean, you're free to try.
Look, I'm not saying I'm going to, but I feel like that there might be something to look out for when we go back there, right?
my
Tara?
my dealings with Royal Inquisitors has been that the best answer is yes, sir.
Understandable.
A few of
Yeah.
my clients have tried. It hasn't gone well.
Hmm.
It's the most common source of me not having clients anymore.
And I mean, the hat you guys told me about a Fire Fist, that's just them flexing. Like, they can do shit like that to all of us.
Interesting.
It's fine.
Oh,
How this still works if Fire Fist becomes an actual royal. Sorry, Fire Fist, I know that's a dirty word. I don't know. That's kind of uncharted territory. Maybe Luna has an idea. But I mean, I know the queens can have political sway on each other. I was told to use that to how get the Queen of the Glass Palace evolve if anybody who is going to try to get Orion to leave this world. But yeah,
hmm. Trust, I shot you a quick DM.
Yes. Yeah, you can. That's fine.
Well, I'm gonna go turn in for the night. This has been a
yeah,
very
it's about
enlightening conversation.
Yep. It's
guess
about
it is
that
about that
time.
time.
Thanks for
Night,
cooking,
everybody.
Tara and Luna. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You betcha, Captain. Thanks for the hot dog.
Yeah, thanks for throwing that in the ceiling.
It's got hot dog juice now. It's a feature.
Great. That's gonna smell in like 3 days.
I'll get a mop.
It's in the ceiling?
I will mop the ceiling. Fire Fist, pick me up. Good job.
Reduced to-
What's up?
Is this what my life becomes? Helping you clean the hot dog juice off the ceiling?
Yeah. Also, Fire Fist, is the hat still on?
Yes, fucking hat's still on.
You made it to the end of the session with the hat on. That means, bing, 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 you can get either a familiar or you can get one of your bonds back, buddy.
You immediately threw it at the wall.
Oh, damn, take 10 corruption. No, I'm messing with you.
No!
No.
Don't you fucking dare.
You did, nah, you did.
I mean, I take 10 corruption. You all die right now.
you did your time. You're good. You get a bond back. Whatever one you want.
It's like fucking prison all over again.
I'm assuming you want a bond and not a familiar.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I can skin a familiar alive, or I can burn a bond later for a new ability.
Sure. You can get your memories of home and family back, or you can get the long-time friendship with Ponyboy back.
The pony boy who does exist but doesn't exist.
Yeah. So
Or
congratulations,
maybe
you remembered your loved ones. Hell yeah.
counterpoint. Why don't you wait till next session and give some thought as to creating an entirely new bond based on your experiences with the party?
You could do that.
Ooh.
We could do that.
Since you do have some new
I like that idea.
aspirations.
Yeah. Gunshot. Loud.
Cool. So, do you mind if I do something real quick?
We are running quite late.
I just wanted to say one line. We just do like a cutoff thing.
Oh, yeah. I'm fine with that.
As
personally.
Soul goes in and closes the door. He just sits down and says, "Hey, Saber, why don't you tell me about yourself finally?" That's it. That's all I want to do.
Aw, bless.
Hey. Oh, Barry and Dash are doing Forza Horizon.
Oh.
That's where I'll be after this. This is going to help them do the trial because they've already attempted it
Nice.
like 6 times.
Heck yeah. I'm reading to Barry. Damn, immediately. I'm not gonna pull you into Uno.
Uh-huh.
We're not taking that risk.
Not you could have just left the last time when Uno lasted forever. I didn't like stab your fucking hand to a contract or anything, and it wasn't like a fucking honorable mission.
Yes,
You
you
just
did.
chose to
My hand
treat
was
it
tied to a
like you were
contract.
consigned to it.
My hand was tied to a contract. How about you guys?
Thank y'all
Notes
for
are
watching
uploaded. You can
and
see.
joining.
Oh,
I really
sorry.
appreciate it. It's always a blast writing the thing. How was it, by the way? How was the thing? Good? Bad?
That's good.
That was great.
Good.
Yay!
Yeah, good.
I'm glad. I've been sitting on all that for a while. Hey! Fuck yeah. Next time I'll be live is gonna be tomorrow night. Also hell yeah, Vath for calling for calling both Solstice's and my revelation, GG. Like a few days early. Or probably weeks early, honestly. And yeah, next time I'll be live is tomorrow night. I'm gonna be playing some motherfucking Bleeder Brown with the squad. Yeah.
Critical moment.
I'm giving training this week, which means I'm probably going to be antisocial and grumpy whenever I get home.
No. Let's fucking go. Chirp at him.
With my head.